Today we are going to read 42. I'm going to only read the first 4 chapters to you guys. Chapter 1, The Neighborhood, 1927. 8-year-old Jack swept the last bit of dirt from the front steps into the dustpan. Mama was so proud of their 5-bedroom house and wanted everything in it and around to be neat and clean. The way his mother made good things happen, Jack liked to think of her as having magical powers. 7 years earlier, when Jack's father abandoned the family, Mally Robinson had packed up her 5 children and moved from Georgia to California with only $3.07 into the lining of her pet coat. Other members of Mally's family came along, too. Her sister, Cora Wade, Cora's husband, Sam, and their 2 sons. Within only a few days of arriving, Mally landed a job. For 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, she cleaned and cooked for a white family. She worked hard for $8 a week, but she never complained. She was gone from early morning until night. So much of Jack's care fell to his older sister, Willa Mae. For the first 2 years in California, the Robinsons and the Wades lived together in an apartment, sharing rent. Sam's job didn't pay much more than Mama's, yet, miraculously, within 2 years, the families had squared away enough pennies and nickels and dimes for a down payment on a house. When Mama saw 121 Pepper Street for sale, she thought it one of the finest on the block. The house, however, was in a white working-class neighborhood. The neighbors got an unpleasant surprise when the 2 black families moved into the 2-story clapboard house. Someone burned a cross on the lawn. Another person went from house to house in the neighborhood to find someone who could buy them out, but no one had enough money, so the family stayed. It took time, but Mom eventually won the respect of most of her white neighbors. She had sent Jack's older brother, Edgar, to do odd jobs at no change for Miss Cooper Smith, a widow who lived next door. A nearby bakery gave Mama its day-old leftovers. The milkman gave her unsold milk. Mally could have easily used the baked goods and milk to help feed her large family, but she shared whatever she received with her neighbors, even the ones who were hostile. Some neighbors still resented having a black family on the block. One frequently called the police to complain that Edgar, whizzing around on roller skates, made too much noise. An elderly couple scurried inside their house whenever any of the children walked their way. 2 years later, in 1924, Uncle Sam and Aunt Cora had saved enough money to buy a separate house just a few blocks away. Now 121 Pepper Street belonged just to Mama, and she needed more money to meet expenses. Jack wished he could help, but he was still too young to get paying jobs. Like his older brother, next year he might be able to get a newspaper route or mow lawns. For now, Mama believed that he could sweep, so he is going to do it, and he did it good. Mama's flowers were her pride and joy. So was the backyard with its vegetable garden and fruit trees. Sometimes Mama raised turkeys, chickens, ducks, and rabbits, but her green thumb, livestock, and salary weren't always enough to feed her family of 6. Many nights Jack's dinners was bread soaked in milk or in water and sugar, or leftovers that Mama brought home from her job. Some mornings Jack was so hungry he could hardly stand up when he got to school. Jack finished sweeping the front walk and moving on to the sidewalk. Across the street, a girl coming out of her house, she glared at Jack and then shouted. As young and little as he was, Jack could not let this racial slur pass. His grandma, Eden, born a slave, took great pride on being black and had taught Jack that Negro was only proper name for the race. Another name was a slur that should not be tolerated. In a flash, Jack was shouting, "Return," and saw the cry of cracker, a derogatory term for poor rural whites in the South. The girl's father overheard Jack's taunt and charged aside to throw stones at Jack. Jack threw stones right back at them. Stones flew until the girl's mother came outside and yelled at her husband for fighting with a child. 1 second. Chapter 2. Jack's Idol, 1932. Jack idolized his older brother Mac, not just for his athletic ability, but for his character and determination as well. In junior high school, Mac was already a star athlete in football, baseball, basketball, and track and field when he was diagnosed with a heart murmur. The school, fearing that something could happen to Mac if he played, banned him from all competitive sports. Mac refused to accept their decision and turned to his mother for help. Mally met with school officials and convinced them to at least let Jack participate in non-contact sports. Mac returned to track and field and became a superstar sprinter. He won many events and set a statewide record for the high hurdles. Mac was in high school now and hadn't lost a race so far this year. Today, he was competing for John Muir Technical High School in the 100-yard dash. Jack tried never to miss watching him meet. Jack was a natural athlete himself, always playing something. His keen hand-eye coordination made him a marvelous champion. In games of dodgeball, Jack moved so fast that no one could ever catch him. With Jack on the field, his third grade soccer team was so good that they were able to challenge the sixth grade team and win. His third grade soccer team was so good that they were able to challenge the sixth grade team and win. In the schoolyard at lunchtime, he played handball. No matter what game or sport, Jack always played to win, and usually did. For all the pride he took in his talent, however, he knew he could never run as fast as Mac. Mac crouched in starting position, hips up, weight resting on his fingers. A sprinter had to be ready to run. As soon as the pistol signaled at the start of the race, so his stance was critical, so was reaction time. There wasn't a split second to lose. The pistol shot popped. Jack watched Mac take off. Spraying dirt behind him, Mac pumped his legs hard. His eyes focused on the track. He never looked over his shoulder or to the side. That could add fractions of a second to his time and cost him the race. Jack knew that Mac was thinking of only one thing: winning. Mac piled up seeds and Jack yelled and cheered. With every other Muir fan and his brother crossed the finish line ahead of the pack. Let me just get a little bit more comfortable. I'm just checking something real quick. Awesome. Chapter 3. International Day. Summer 1934. Jack undressed quickly and put on his bathing suit. He and his gang were going to have a chance to cool off today at Pasadena's municipal pool. The Pepper Street Gang, as they called themselves, was a mix of poor black, Mexican, Japanese, and a few white kids. They didn't carry knives or guns or take drugs or drink alcohol. They didn't even have a clubhouse or jackets or a secret handshake. Restricted for activities in the city because of race and money. They had band together to create their own fun. Jack intended to have lots of fun at the pool this day. The Pepper Street Gang's fun wasn't always legal. They stole fruit from produce stands. They hid out on the local golf course, scooped up balls that came by, and then sold them back to the players. They threw rocks and dirt at passing cars. Once they spread tar on the lawn of a man who had shouted racist slurs at them. When Mally found out about that, she made the boys clean up the mess. Many times Jack had been hauled down to police headquarters for a lecture by the head of the police youth division. Once he had been arrested for swimming in the city's reservoir during a heat wave. Today's fun would be completely legal. Though it would definitely annoy the white lifeguard. Summer temperatures in Pasadena hovered around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. On most days, Jack and his friends could only peek through the picket fence around Pasadena's municipal pool and watch the white kids swim. But today was Wednesday. The city officials called International Day. It was the one day a week when, for 3 hours, blacks, Latinos, and Asians were allowed to swim at the municipal pool. After those 3 hours were up, the pool wouldn't be drained, cleaned, and refilled with fresh water, all before the next morning when Pasadena's white citizens would return to swim. The municipal pool was only one of numerous humiliations that blacks faced in Pasadena. There were no white-only signs, as there were in South, but race segregation was still the rule. Jack could get a job washing dishes at a restaurant, but he wouldn't be allowed to eat at the counter. There were neighborhoods he knew he wouldn't be safe in. He learned to use sports equipment at the YMCA, but membership wasn't open to blacks. Whenever he could, Jack defied segregation. A few times, Jack and a friend sat down at Woolworth's lunch counter and refused to budge until they were served. More than once, when the lights dimmed in a movie theater, he snuck into the white section. Mama had moved the family to Pasadena because her half-brother, who had settled in California, had told her that if she wanted to get closer to heaven, she should visit California. Jack believed that was true, but only if you were white and wealthy. Bigotry was ingrained in Pasadena schools, yet Jack formed warm bonds with his kindergarten and first grade teacher. As the years passed, however, only white teachers revealed their prejudices. They were often rude and excluded minority students from activities. More than once, Jack and his friends got banned for trouble that was actually caused by white students. Mama believed education was the only thing white people couldn't take away from a person. That might be true, Jack thought, but no matter how well educated he could become, he knew that the city of Pasadena would never hire him as a police officer or firefighter or a teacher or a janitor. He and his friends would be lucky if they got jobs picking up garbage. With the afternoon sun beaming down on him, Jack climbed the ladder to the highest diving platform. He looked down at the kids swimming and those scattered around the edges of the concrete pool. Then he looked across as the white lifeguard sitting. My bad. Then he looked across the lifeguard sitting in the high chair, watching Jack, waiting for him to dive. The lifeguard was in for a surprise. Up and out, Jack jumped, as high as he could. He grabbed and hugged his leg close to his chest. He trapped through the air like a bomb, hitting the water with an explosive splash and drenching everyone in and around the pool with his cannonball. Even before Jack surfaced, he knew that the lifeguard was already climbing down from his chair to warn Jack against repeating that stunt. But Wednesday was Jack's day. He was going to cannonball as often as he'd like, no matter what the lifeguard said. No one was going to stop him. Let me stretch real quick. Alright, chapter 4. This will be the last chapter I'll be reading to you guys. Mac's Big Challenge, July 18th, 1963. It was 3 a.m., but no one in the Robinson family was sleeping. The 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany were underway, and like millions of other Americans, they were huddled around the radio. This year's Olympics were particularly personal for Jack and his family. The American track and field team had 2 black women and 16 black men on it, 3 times the number of African Americans who had competed in the previous Olympics. 22-year-old Mac Robinson was one of them. Nazi director Adolf Hitler had built a gigantic stadium in Berlin, confident that German athletes would outshine all others and prove the rightness of the theory that Aryans were the master race. The Olympics were a chance for African American athletes banned from all professional sports except boxing in their own country to show that the United States and the world, what they could do. And over the years, when given the chance, black athletes had proved that they were as talented as white athletes. In 1904, George Poag, the first black American on a U.S. Olympic team, won bronze medal in the 200-meter and 400-meter hurdle. 4 years later, John Baxter Taylor won a gold in the 4x400 relay. The 1924 Olympics saw 3 black American medalists. In the long jump, D. Hart Hubbard won the gold and Ed Gordon won the silver. Earl Johnson won bronze for the 10,000-meter cross-country race. In 1932, black sprinter Eddie Tillon, the Midnight Express, had awed spectators by capturing the gold. Had awed spectators by capturing the gold in both the 100 and 200-meter races. The gold. Ralph Metcalf had won a silver in the 100-meter and a bronze in the 200-meter. At Pasadena Junior College, Mack had set national records in the 100 and 200 and the long jump, yet his exceptional achievements had not paved an easy road to Berlin. The United States was still struggling through an economic depression. Money was even scarier for black Americans than it was for white Americans. Most white Olympic athletes had college coaches who trained them in the annex other sports and their style of the other competitors, so they would know what they were up against. Their colleges paid for all equipment, travel, and living expenses, even in the best of economic times. Few African American athletes ever enjoyed such backing. Pasadena Junior College didn't have the money to help Mack. Mack hadn't even had the $150 train fare to get from California to New York City for the qualifying trials. Lucky for him, some Pasadena business people got together and donated the train fare, but they haven't given him money for new running shoes. Mack was still stuck running in battered spikes that pinched his toes. The announcer called the names of the runners in the 200-meter dash. Among them was African Jesse Owens, who would be Mack's fiercest competitor. Owens' extraordinary accomplishments were well known in high school. He won a world record in the 100-meter yard dash at the 1935 NCAA championship. He won the 100-yard dash, trying the world mark. 10 minutes later, he broke the world record in the long jump. 9 minutes after that, he set another world record in the 220-yard dash, and several minutes later, he broke another world record in the low hurdles. He won the same 4 events in the Big Ten Track and Field Championship in Michigan the following May. He was fast, but so was Mack. The pistol sounded and the runners were off. Before Jack knew it, the announcer was booming the names of the winners. Jesse Owens, first with the gold medalist, his time, 20.7 seconds. Behind Owens was 4/10 of a second. Mack Robinson had captured the silver. There was no end to the joy and pride of the Robinson home that morning. Out of the total of 56 medals won by the United States in the 1936 Olympics, 14 were won in track and field. Black athletes won all 14. 8 of the 4 medals were gold. Mack and his teammates had a triumphant post-Olympic tour in Europe, competing in many events in Paris. Mack tied the world record in a 200-meter race, but when the Olympic silver medalists returned home in Pasadena, there were no ticker-tap parades. The city ignored Mack's accomplishments. The Olympics behind him, the star athlete needed a job and found himself sweeping the streets of Pasadena on the night shift. And that is all I'm going to be reading for you today, chapters 1 through 4. Thank you.